All right, I'm trying to lower this just a little bit. There we go. That looks okay, doesn't it? What do you think? How do I look? I wore my pineapple shirt because the pineapple shirt is the sign of, apparently, of hospitality.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Thank you. It's what they tell you the first time you go to Hawaii. Now, there's really no data on this. They could be lying to us about the pineapple shirt, but I'm taking them at their word.
If enough people say it, it must be true, right?
All right. Yeah. I do want to tell you that the question that I get asked, of course, by everyone, because it's in the marketplace, is, am I going to be on Star Trek Picard next year? And the answer is a very boring no. There are no plans for that. And every 3 or 4 of these interviews I have done have sort of led with that. Like that was the whole story. So it's kind of a boring it's kind of a boring way to go, but it's up to you. All right.
No, I'm not. I mean, I'm not gonna. I hadn't had that in my first question. It would probably.
Cool. All right.
So we'll go ahead and get started here. Welcome. Now, first of all, the question I have for you, the most important question in the interview is, do I refer to you as Mr. Picardo, Robert, Robbie, the doctor? How do you like to be referred to?
You know what? You can. All my friends call me Bob, so you can say that you're interviewing Robert Picardo, but he's asked me to call him Bob, or he's Bob to me, because we're pal. Whatever you want. All right.
Well, I referenced the doctor. I think many people probably recognize you as the doctor from Star Trek Voyager. Now, the advantage of that is that Trek fans are very enthusiastic and passionate. Do you get recognized all the time, or is it more of a niche thing?
You know, it depends really where you are in the world. It depends on how used to seeing actors from television. I do get recognized regularly, but in California, because they're a little, they're over it as far as running into actors. They don't make a big deal out of it. And it's always funny where they do make a big deal. I've been recognized on the subway in Vienna when Voyager, first premiered, and I was surprised at that. But yeah, we do get recognized, but most of the time people don't say anything, or they know they recognize me, but they don't know why.
That's the guy from the thing with the guy. Yeah,
exactly. Or even if it could be, depending on their age, it's like, oh, that's the guy who helps me at the bank. That's the guy who wouldn't let me exchange the shoes when they were the wrong width. That kind of thing.
Is it? I guess if you had your say on how you would like people to approach you or deal with you when they do recognize you, are you a give me my space when I'm out in public guy, or do you enjoy people coming up to you? How would you?
No, I mean, it's always fine. People, by and large, I find are very gracious. You get the occasional person who you're eating at a restaurant and you're like this, and they go, "Oh, I'm sorry to interrupt you," and you want to go,
like, not my best moment.
But usually I find that if people see you at a restaurant, they wait until you're done. They wait until you're getting up to leave, or they wait until after your main course is gone and you're waiting for your coffee, and then they'll say something. So, I don't have a lot of bad experiences. But when I was a very young man, I did a play with Jack Lemmon. Jack Lemmon was 54 years old. I was 24. He'd been a movie star for 25 years, and I would go out to dinner with him between shows. And I was absolutely shocked how many people came up to him while he was eating, whether he was alone or because I asked him, and he said it happened when he was alone. But I'm eating with him. And the first thing they said was, "I don't want to interrupt you," or "I don't want to bother you." And literally, it was between bites of his soup. So, people usually, when you say hello to a celebrity, it's something you either can't resist doing, or you're doing it for yourself. But if people are gracious, I never have a problem with it.
Do you prefer autographs or selfies, or none of the above if people are going to come up to you somewhere and you're not in the middle of your food?
Oh God. Probably selfies, or probably just, what's always nice is if they just say, "I just wanted to say hello," and then they go.
That's the best. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a new video out on YouTube. Talk to me a little bit about "Spent My Life an Actor," because I had the opportunity to watch it this morning. It was quite humorous, but tell me about it first. Tell the audience about it.
My friend and colleague in the great Star Trek family, Brent Spiner, who played Data in the Next Generation, we met probably 25 years ago when I first started shooting Voyager. And we become friends, all of us, because we're part of the same family and we're together all the time at events or cruises or whatever, where we sit and have dinner and get to know each other. And, you know, he started out in New York, similar to me, and came from a theater background. So I've known him 25 years. I consider us good friends. He makes me laugh. Well, about 2 months ago, he uploaded a video on Twitter poking fun at himself. I mean, it was it was a very colorful, joyful, singing video where he was celebrating the fact that he was working so much. And while he's singing the video, he realizes that he's left the Zoom meeting still open. And he has broadcast to the world, or he's about to broadcast to the world, this incredibly self-aggrandizing moment of, you know, of his end zone dance, right? And I thought it was very funny, and I thought it was great that Brent did this as a gift to his social media followers. It was like saying, hey guys, everybody, you know, not much is going on. Everybody is at home. We could all use a laugh. And he just did it for them. And I thought, what a great thing. Meanwhile, a friend of mine calls up, did you see Brent's video? I saw Brent's video. He said, do you want to make one? To answer it, I said, what do you mean? He said, well, I have a film crew that's being paid because, you know, he runs a company that does big events for corporations, and he has people on staff that he was paying, but there was no work. He said, you know, my crew knows you. I had worked with him before in a video for a tech company. He said, why don't we just shoot something? I said, I have no ideas. So I hung up the phone, and then I had an idea. And I called him back and said, okay, let's do it. And I told him what I wanted to do, what kind of locations. He said, well, everybody's in lockdown. We can't shoot in a public space. We can't shoot in a diner. We can't have you walking along the beach. So I suggested what I thought we needed minimally. He said, I have a friend who is an acquaintance of mine as well. My friend said, we could shoot at his house. He's got a huge yard. We can do your drone shot that I asked for. So, so we ended up shooting at a friend's house. We shot it in 5 hours. We socially distanced. We wore masks, and it was just a ball. My friend James Marlowe, who directed, you know, followed the discussion we'd had the day before with how I was envisioning the scenes. I said, I want to fool people. I want it to start out very dramatically, and you think that it's going to be serious, and then it turns. And we did all of that, I think, and I had all the props. I got my Walmart hat and my diner cap, and I even brought 2 fans, so off camera we could blow the trash through the frame at the end. It was all, you know, do it yourself. So.
Well, you kind of stole some of my questions, but that is exactly the impression you get. Is it's very professional, and it's because you had that crew. I was wondering how you were able to get it so, I don't want to say glossy looking, but it really looked like a professional video.
Well, they are. They're all professionals, and they did it, you know, for love. I did not spend, beyond buying my Walmart cap on Amazon for $11.78, and buying, and I have 30 paper hats. If I ever want to work at a diner, I am set. But you know, so very little money was spent, and as I said, we took precautions, and it was a total gas. In fact, my friend said, what's the next idea? Do you want to do another one? So that's what I'm ruminating on now.
So, you know, I don't want to spoil the song, but you've mentioned it. Brent is kind of inspired by Brent Spiner a little bit. You mentioned you were friends. Do you have a sort of friendly rivalry with him at all, or are you just...
No, not really. Although actors love to kid on the square. There was a role I got years ago on Broadway, and the first time it was the play that I already mentioned with Jack Lemmon. When I was a young actor at 24, I got this plum role playing Jack Lemmon's son in his return to Broadway for the first time since he'd become a movie star. So he'd been in Hollywood 25 years. Now he was coming back to Broadway for the first time. And the part of his son, the second lead in the comedy drama, was a big deal. So a lot of actors auditioned for the part, lots and lots and lots. Brent being one of them, which I never knew until I met Brent 16 years later while he was shooting Star Trek Generations, and they walked me over from the Voyager set. And Brent was at the, you know, the craft service table getting a cup of coffee or whatever. And they said, Brent, have you met Bob Picardo? And he turned like this and he went, you got my part in the Jack Lemmon play. I mean, he said, you got my part in Tribute, which was the name of the play with Jack Lemmon. So that was 16 years later. And that was the first time I met him. So yes, is there a friendly rival among actors? Of course. But at this stage of life, I would say that we're all very happy when we are all healthy and well and safe and still working. So even though I'm not working in science fiction at the moment, I am working on 2 other shows. So I'm well taken care of. I'm not working at a diner. That's all I can say. Although I'm retaining the extra diner hats just in case.
So what are your other projects that you're working on next?
They just really uploaded, or whatever the word is. They just started streaming the first half season of The Family Business, which is a kind of a black Sopranos starring Ernie Hudson as the father of a multi-generational crime family like the Sopranos, and the cast was almost exclusively African American, which I am not. But I play I play a Jewish gangster, like a Meyer Lansky type gangster who seems very sweet and grandfatherly on the surface, but is a very, a very dangerous man. And that's fun to do. And Ernie is great, and the whole company and crew are great. Also the last 2 seasons, I've been on an Apple show called Dickinson, with Haley Steinfeld playing Emily Dickinson. I play her father's political consultant and good friend. In actual history, Emily Dickinson's father ran for U.S. Congress. So we dramatized that in the first season. Although the show is very, very strange and not at all historically authentic. It's more of a mashup of modern sensibilities, along with the great writing of arguably the first modern female American poet. She was way ahead of her time. And also, there were other things I was in California supposed to work on, all of which got locked down tight as a drum. So doing the video was really, I was trying to emulate Brent by saying, hey, here's a gift for you. If we're all at home staying safe, here's a little giggle. Hopefully you'll get a laugh out of this. That's all.
I did get a laugh, and it was very self-deprecating, just like you mentioned Brent Spiner's video was, but you've actually had a very long and distinguished career beyond the Doctor on Star Trek Voyager. I guess I should tell you a little personal note. I was at Comic-Con, I believe, in 2012, and I was working at a panel for, I think it was called Femme Fatales, and you were on the panel. So I have seen you before, but I've never met you. I think you were like a scientist doctor or something.
I was. I remember the first part they offered me on that show, because the show had nudity and it was a simulated sex scene, and I thought, I said, I don't know that I want to be watching, me sweating and humping on the internet for the rest of my life. So I'm going to say, thank you, no. And then they came back and offered me a part where the character was just a bad guy. And other people were doing the sweating and humping in the episode. It was an interesting show. I remember Academy Award nominated Steve Railsback ended up taking the sweating and humping part that I turned down. So it was, they got some very good actors on it. And also my children were young enough that I didn't want them to see Dad in flagrant delecto. The same way you wouldn't with your daughter, right?
Right. Exactly. So, I led that into that as a joke, but what are some of your favorite roles, or maybe roles that might have been overlooked? I mean, one of mine is your Wonder Years, and I think you were actually nominated for an Emmy for that. Is that?
Yes, that character, the Wonder Years, was a great show. You knew when you read the pilot that it was going to become a classic television show. It was so smart and so well written, and that character that I played on the Wonder Years, everyone seemed to have a gym teacher at some point in their lives who was like him. Not a very athletic man, mostly just sort of a kind of a paranoid, rule keeper. This is the way the world is supposed to be. That old kind of, by God, this is the way we're going to do things, even though a lot of the way he did things didn't make sense anymore. So 12-year-old Kevin Arnold, Fred Savage, would ask him questions like, I don't think the way we choose teams is fair, do you? Because it really was, among 12-year-olds, allowing them to choose their friends and all that, it's kind of a sort of a subliminal kind of bullying, because the kids that are overweight or uncoordinated or perhaps have some sort of physical challenge are always the odd man or woman out, the odd girl or boy out. So, but my character is too embedded in the past to see that. But it was great fun to play that part. It's a classic show. I always am happy when people recognize me. Coach Cutlip is probably the stupidest character I've ever played. I normally play very verbal and intelligent characters. That's the only time I played someone with an IQ somewhere between a fish and a human.
What are some of your other favorite kind of, I don't want to say hidden roles, or maybe?
Well, aside from theater credits, because the play that I mentioned with Jack Lemmon was one of those experiences I would wish any young actor to be, to spend basically a year of your life working with someone who is a huge star, but still as humble and genuine an individual as you would hope to meet. That was a lesson for a young actor to work with someone like him, who didn't take himself too seriously and yet had this extraordinary career. I'm very proud of my work on China Beach. China Beach was a highly decorated drama about Vietnam, and it dealt with, I think, trying to heal some of the lingering wounds of that war. That we made it as a country. We seem to make this really tragic mistake of blaming those who fought the war for a war when we should have been blaming the government policy that took us to that war. And it's the only time when American combat veterans came back that they didn't get the thanks of a grateful nation that they deserve. And the wounds of that war just sort of kind of stayed raw, I think. And China Beach, which was co-created by a Vietnam vet, William Broyles, who went on to win the Academy Award for Castaway, and I think maybe even Apollo 13. He's a very highly decorated screenwriter now, but he'd served in Vietnam, and he was very anxious to keep the honesty and truthfulness of our storytelling on China Beach, and that it just was a wonderful experience. So many actors with long careers like Dana Zeleny, Marg Helgenberger, Michael Boatman, have all had their first big role in China Beach. And finally, let's see, what other sort of quirky side roles am I particularly proud of? Probably my litany of characters for Joe Dante, especially the cowboy in INNERSPACE. Joe Dante is a very kind of subversive and unusual film director. He loves to reuse the same actors. He said in different articles, if he couldn't figure out how to cast a part, he just gave it to me. So he gave me a lot of support and freedom when I worked for him, and it was always a very creative experience to work with him, regardless of the size of the role.
I can't confirm this, but I believe I was playing a Call of Duty game and your voice was in there. Did I hear that?
Oh yeah, I'm in 4 calls of. What's the plural of Call of Duty?
Yeah, Calls of Duty. I don't know.
Yeah. I'm in 4 big duties. How about that? And I play multiple characters. Some of them where I did the reference performance with motion capture outfits. Some of them just for voiceover. But yeah, the Call of Duty creators called me their lucky charm, and they told me I was the only actor who was in all of the Black Ops ones. So
that's cool. How'd you get in on that? Are you a gamer yourself, or do they know?
Oh no, my reflexes are so slow now that you don't want to see me playing a video game. You barely don't want to see me driving a car, but to play video games, you got to really have those razor sharp reflexes, and I don't. So I haven't played video games since my own kids were very young. So my video game years were like Pac-Man. But I understand it's really popular. I've watched some of the scenarios that gamers record, so I've seen my characters and voice in action, and I like the fact that because of the zombie level of play with all the carnage, you're not, I don't like the ones that are super violent with a lot of humans killing other humans. I prefer killing the undead. I think is a better way to go.
How do you describe the difference between voiceover work and acting? Theater, I understand, is a different kind of acting than on a TV because you're doing a live audience. Well, how does those three?
The usual jokes about voiceover is that you don't have to bathe, you don't have to groom yourself. But you are sitting in a room, often with others, sometimes alone. When you record cartoons, frequently they'll record all of the actors or multiple actors at the same time in a recording booth. That's the most fun because you get to play off each other. More often than not, you just record your part alone, line by line. So you're imagining the other actor's performance. Certainly the Call of Duty stuff, you know, if it wasn't a motion capture scene where I worked with other actors, then all of the recording was done alone in a studio. So you have to use your imagination. You have to keep your energy up, but you get to play with doing different kinds of voices, which is which is always a lot of fun. I've sung in animated, in cartoons and stuff like that. The demands are always very different. I played very, very dramatic and scary characters and absolutely silly ones. So voiceover work is a lot of fun. Every one is a vicarious life.
Do you mind name dropping a couple of the animated things you've been in that people might want to
I don't remember. They're on Cartoon Network, and they come and go, and a lot of them were the ones that science fiction fans are most interested in. Is I played Amazo and Black Hawk in the original Justice League series in the 80s.
Oh,
then
cool.
I was back in the new Justice League series. I played Harvey Dent or Two-Face. So I have certain credits in sci-fi but the silly ones, the Cartoon Network, they're not even on my resume. I have no recollection of what they were.
You mentioned you're very versatile. You've been in sci-fi and comedies, but you seem to put your money where your mouth is a little bit on the science side of things. Talk to me a little bit about the Planetary Society, because I believe you're on the board.
All right. Happy to do that. The Planetary Society was founded 40 years ago in 1980, so this is our fourth decade, by Carl Sagan and two of his colleagues from Jet Propulsion Laboratory and Caltech, Louis Friedman and Bruce Murray. Mr. Sagan felt that after the tremendous success of the 60s of NASA, that in the 70s, the public interest and engagement in space exploration was dwindling, and he wanted to kind of get them excited again. So he decided to found this organization, which is a space advocacy group that would hopefully make private citizens feel that they were stakeholders in our future in space, and that they could sign petitions to NASA. They could educate themselves. They could become advocates, not only for larger budgets for NASA, but even for specific goals that NASA should pursue. And we are presently run by Bill Nye, the Science Guy. I started years ago while I was on Voyager on their advisory council at their invitation, engaging young people with educational challenges like Red Rover. Red Rover, at the time we landed our first Mars rover, the Sojourner rover in 1997 or 98, the Planetary Society had a strategic partnership with the Lego Corporation, and kids at the junior high school and high school level could build their own Mars rover. And they would build their own Martian surface like sandbox. And then they would send their rover to a competing high school. That high school would send their rover to your high school. And your rover would explore the unknown Martian surface of the other school and telecommunicate via the internet the data, send it back, and then you would map the unknown Mars. So it was a perfect analog for what we were doing at that moment in space that kids could do in high school. So, and after years of serving on the advisory council and actually getting a public service announcement shot on our Star Trek set, which was a hard thing to do, I was finally asked to be on the executive board about 4 years ago. And I sit around the table with these incredible minds, and I have the fewest academic credentials around the table, but they all treat me very nicely. And they know that my particular mission is to reach out to the science fiction community and to tell them that if you're a science fiction fan, you're really a science fan, and that you should check out our website, www.planetary.org, and find out all the cool stuff that actually is going on, not just what's going on in Star Trek.
So I have to ask, I've saved it to the end, but I'm sure every interview you get stuck with asks you this. One of the advantages of being a doctor who is a hologram on a Star Trek show is that your character could pop up in other places for cameos and things. And I don't need to get into specifics, but is there any talk anytime of showing up in a different Star Trek project? That there's a few going on right now.
Everything is possible, but there is absolutely nothing that is either in the works or definite. Like my colleague Data, the Doctor is not supposed to change physically. He was not supposed to age because his facial parameters were based on the man who programmed him at that point in his life. The programmer, however, has aged in normal time. And we have all these wonderful digital correction programs to make actors look younger. So I would say that everything is possible, but nothing is definite.
That's a perfect answer. Give people hope, but no promises. So is there any other, I know you mentioned you had some projects, and I don't want to keep you all day. I've really enjoyed your time. You mentioned some projects that kind of got sidelined by COVID. Is there a chance they're going to get picked up again?
I think so. Most of them were guest appearances on other shows, and I'm sure they will be picked up again. But right now, while I'm in lockdown, I've started a YouTube channel. One of the reasons I posted the "Why Was I Not Born" Brent Spiner video called "Spent My Life an Actor" is to make people aware that I have this. I'm doing original content every week. I just uploaded 2 new videos today. Some of them feature me as myself. Some of them feature me playing a character known as Alfonso, who is the world's most self-absorbed man. He is every woman's nightmare of a guy who sits next to her at a bar and will not leave her alone. He thinks he's God's gift to women, but now in later life, he thinks of himself as the world's greatest lover emeritus, and he is offering you romantic advice which you should not take. Everything he says is stupid, sexist, and unusable, but he's great fun to watch. So please check out Your Future in Love with Alfonso, where the world's greatest lover gives you advice you must ignore. And
to find your YouTube channel generally, is it just Robert Picardo?
You know what? If you go to my Instagram, Robert_Picardo, the link is in the bio. Okay. YouTube links are ridiculous to say out loud. So you just go to Robert_Picardo, which is pretty easy to remember. Go in the bio and click on the link, and an entire world that you never knew of will open up to you.
Are you on any other social media where your fans can follow?
Yes, I am on Twitter at Robert Picardo. I have to tell you, Facebook, I have mixed feelings about Facebook, so I'm not as active on Facebook. I have a fan page. I check in once, but I'm not really good at answering. When you get 1,000 people going, say hello to me, say hello, please. I'm not really good at that. I'm sorry. Because it's a full-time job, social media. It really is, I don't know how I'll go back to actual work once it happens. But,
speaking of saying hello to you and actual work, have you heard of this thing? I think it's called Cameo, where people will say stuff.
I am on Cameo.
Okay.
And I have been remarkably popular on Cameo. I have to say, more so because I resisted the offer to join for a couple of years, and I've been on all this year, and I have to say that I work hard at them. I sometimes write original lyrics to songs, and I have gotten nothing lower than a 5-star rating. So I'm a devoted Cameo maker. And it's a great app. What's wonderful is it's absolutely transparent. It's seamless for the actor to use, seamless for the public to use. So it's really, I think their success is warranted, because I know their company's kind of exploding.
Do you have any Cameo, I don't want to say horror stories or interesting stories where someone wanted you to say
once in a while you upload somebody else's Cameo to the wrong person. That's always funny, but they're never very intimate or whatever. I'm actually going to, Alfonso is becoming popular enough on my YouTube channel that I'm going to start a Cameo site for that character, for me playing him, which I'm assuming will be very popular, especially around Valentine's Day.
Yes.
Because as I said, he gives the worst romantic advice ever, which some people really like. So one of the reasons I am grooming Alfonso for Cameo, we just have to make him refer to his genitals less.
Or more, depending on how.
Or more, depending on the request, I guess.
Well, I want to take the time to thank you for taking the time to speak to us. We really appreciate it. It's been a very fascinating interview, and I've learned a lot about you besides the standard Star Trek things, which you rightfully should be very proud of. But you're so much more than that. You have a lot of other great things on your resume, so to speak.
Thank you.
I really appreciate the time, and hopefully we'll be able to check in again when you open up your next project.
I would love to do that. Thank you very much. And your daughter, who was secretly eating cereal off camera, was totally well behaved and quiet. All right, so she deserves a bow.
This is Parker.
There she is. How adorable is she? What's your name?
Parker, can you say hi?
Hi, Parker. Thank you. Thank you for, she's adorable. Congratulations. A pleasure to meet you and talk to you.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too. Cheers.